What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel and welcome back to our video. Today I'll be taking a look at the 2025 Daytona 500 intros. We're going through all the full-time entries and the part-time entries that have been confirmed for the Daytona 500. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This is once going to be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain is looking for his first Daytona 500 win in 2025, but he's been really strong in super speedways over the course of the last couple of years, as he won in Talladega in the spring of 2022. I think Ross Chastain is going to have a really strong chance and opportunity. Chevy usually runs really well. He came close to win Daytona 500 in 2024. He's got a chance to do it in 2025. Up next, top of the two car for Team Penske. This one once again be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric will be looking for a second Daytona 500 victory in 2025, as he won it back in 2022. And Austin Cindric is a really strong and really good super speedway racer. So I think he's going to have a really good chance to get it done. I expect the Penske cars to be fast. I think Cindric will be a threat to win the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next, top of the three car for Richard Childress Racing. This one once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon will be looking to win his second Daytona 500 in 2025, as he won it back in 2018 after getting into Eric Almirola. Austin Dillon is a pretty underrated super speedway racer. He usually runs up front at these types of tracks and usually has some really good pace and speed, because RSR usually brings the pace and speed at these types of tracks. I expect Austin Dillon to be a major threat and serious contender or an underdog to get it done in 2025. Up next, top of the four car for Front Row Motorsports. This number has not been officially confirmed, but we expect that Noah Gragson will drive this car, as Noah Gragson, of course, will join Front Row Motorsports after being with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024. Noah Gragson is an underrated super speedway racer, shown a lot of promise at these types of tracks, and I think Noah Gragson could be one to watch out for. He won a Talladega in Xfinity competition in 2022, and also won a Daytona in Xfinity competition back in 2019 or 2020. I think Noah's going to have the pace and speed to contend, and we know Front Row usually qualifies very well at these types of tracks every time we show up here. Up next, top of the five car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Now, Kyle Larson is looking for his first Daytona 500 win in 2025 and trying to become one of the few drivers who's won all four Crown Jewel events in NASCAR Cup history. Kyle Larson has not been the best super speedway racer, but actually has had some really good stats in the Daytona 500. So I could see Kyle Larson being an underdog pick for this year's Daytona 500. Though his luck hasn't been great, I think Larson does have a chance to maybe finally get that first Daytona 500 win this upcoming year. Up next, top of the sixth car for RFK Racing. This one once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski has come so close so many times to winning the Daytona 500, and this is a race that pretty much allures him from completing everything in NASCAR Cup competition. Brad is one of the best drivers ever, and he's been close to winning Daytona 500s in the past. He is going into this year as one of the favorites to win the Daytona 500. I think that Brad Keselowski has a really strong chance and a really great opportunity to win the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next, up the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. This will be the first time that Justin Haley has competed for Spire Motorsports in the Daytona 500. Actually, the second time I think he has. Justin Haley is a pretty darn good super speedway racer. In Xfinity Series competition, he has won there 4 times and has previously won at Daytona Cup competition in a summer race back in 2019. I think Justin Haley could be one to watch out for. Spire's equipment has gotten a lot better. I think he could be a threat for sure in this year's Daytona 500. Up next, how about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing? This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch will be running his 20th Daytona 500 in 2025, and after, of course, not winning a single race in the 2024 season, he's looking to get back on his winning ways. If you know history, Dale Sr., of course, didn't win a race in 97 and went on to win the Daytona 500 in 1998. Kyle Busch will be looking to be one of the favorites. It could be a contract year for him at Richard Childress Racing. He'll look to get his first Daytona 500 victory in 2025. Up next, up with the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott has come close multiple times to winning Daytona 500 in the past, including in 2021, and had a really good chance and opportunity to win the 2024 Daytona 500 as well, where I believe he won a stage as well. I look for Chase Elliott to be one of the favorites going in. I think he's going to be in the betting odds for sure. I think Chase Elliott have a really strong chance and a really great opportunity to win his first Daytona 500 in the 2025 season. Up next, how about the 10 car for Colleague Racing? There will be changes to this car for the Daytona 500 in 2025, as the number 31 will be renumbered to the number 10, and Ty Dillon is going to be the driver of this car. Now, Ty Dillon has ran the Daytona 500 multiple times with teams like Germain Racing and nearly qualified in the Daytona 500 with Gaunt Brothers back in 2021. Ty Dillon is an okay super speedway racer at best, but I'm not really expecting him to set the world on fire in Daytona 500 unless Colleague Racing can bring the pace and speed this time around. Up next, how about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This one's going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin will have a new crew chief in this year's Daytona 500, with Chris Gabehart moving to a competition director role at Joe Gibbs Racing. Denny Hamlin will be looking to win his 4th Daytona 500, becoming only the 3rd driver to have at least 4 Daytona 500s, joining the likes of Cale Yarborough and Richard Petty with at least 4 Daytona 500 victories. Denny Hamlin will be one of the favorites for sure, though he hasn't been as strong in the next-gen era. Though I do think Denny Hamlin has a good chance and opportunity to win the Daytona 500. Up next, how about the 12 car for Team Penske? This one once again be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney has been very, very close to winning super speedway races and is one of the better super speedway racers in the field. He is going into this year's Daytona 500 as one of the favorites. He's won at Talladega like 3 or 4 times, has a win at Daytona, and he's been winning a lot of races as super speedways over the years. I think Ryan Blaney has a really strong chance and a great opportunity to get it done. He'll be one of the favorites for sure to win the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next, how about the 13 car for Colleague Racing? While it's not been confirmed, I do think there's a chance and possibility that Colleague Racing is going to enter a 3rd car in the 2025 Daytona 500. So the question is going to be, who are going to be the candidates for that seat? Could Christian Eckes make his NASCAR Cup Series debut? That is certainly possible. Could Josh Williams drive this car? Certainly. Could Daniel Dye drive this seat? That could be certainly possible as well. But I do think there's a good chance the number 13 car could show up to the Daytona 500 in 2025. Up next, how about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing? We do think that Rick Ware Racing is going to run a second entry that will be an uncharted car in 2025. The potential candidates I've seen being behind the wheel of this car are Sheldon Creed, potentially Corey LaJoie if he doesn't go to the 51 car, though we think he's probably getting that seat, Sam Mayer, Cody Ware, and Harrison Burton. If I had to lean toward who's probably going to get the seat, I'm leaning toward Cody Ware getting it at this point, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Sheldon Creed or Sam Mayer being candidates in the seat for the Daytona 500. Up next, out of the 16 car for Colleague Racing. This will be driven by AJ Allmendinger, who moved back up to the Cup Series full-time in 2025 after not running full-time in 2024. Now, AJ Allmendinger has had some decent stats in the Daytona 500 in the past, but he hasn't absolutely set the world on fire in the Daytona 500 in previous years. If Colleague Racing can bring the pace and speed, I think he does have a chance and opportunity to be a contender. But as of right now, I'm just a little skeptical on Colleague Racing going into 2025 on their performance. We'll see what AJ can do, but I'm not super confident in this team going into the 2025 year and 2025 season. Up next, out of the 17 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chris Buescher. Now, Chris Buescher has won a Daytona in the past. That, of course, coming in the 2023 Daytona Summer Race to decide who would go to the playoffs. Chris Buescher is a pretty darn good super speedway racer. He almost won a couple races at super speedways in 2024, and he's shown some great speed at these types of tracks in the past, especially with RFK Racing equipment. I'm looking for Chris Buescher to be one of the favorites to get it done. I think he's got a really strong chance and a really great opportunity to win the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next, out the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will be driven by Chase Briscoe, who replaced Martin Truex Jr., who could also run the Daytona 500 this year. Now, Chase Briscoe has been with Ford for many, many years throughout his career, and he hasn't won a race at a super speedway. He's won those races on mile or mile-and-a-half tracks, but Chase Briscoe has shown some good speed and usually qualifies up front at these types of tracks. I think Chase Briscoe is going to have a solid chance and opportunity to be very, very competitive, but it's all going to depend on if he can survive, because Toyotas also kind of struggle at super speedways. We'll see what Chase Briscoe can do and see if he can bring the pace and speed to the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next up at the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell, a couple years ago, I really didn't rate him as a super speedway racer. However, Christopher Bell is a driver that has shown a lot of improvement and has shown a lot more impressive stuff over the course of the last couple of years. And he almost won a couple super speedway races in 2024, including at Talladega Super Speedway earlier this year. I think Bell could be someone to watch out for that could be a contender. He could have an opportunity to win his first Daytona 500, which could be his 10th career NASCAR Cup Series win. He will be a favorite for sure, an underdog, maybe in the 500 this year. Up next up at the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. There'll be a driver change to the C for 2025 as Josh Berry is going to be the driver for the C in 2025. Josh Berry is going to be joining the team that, of course, won at Daytona last time we were here. That, of course, was with Harrison Burton, who got his first career NASCAR Cup Series win. Josh Berry had some really strong runs at super speedways with Stuart Haas Racing in 2024, and I could see this number 21 team really showing up to this year's 500, especially with Team Penske bringing the pace and speed. We'll see what Josh Berry can do in this car for 2025, and we'll see if he can definitely be a contender in the 2025 Daytona 500 this upcoming year. Up next up, the 22 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Joey Logano. Now, Joey Logano is looking for his first Daytona 500 victory since 2015, which will be 10 years ago when this race happens. But Joey Logano is also coming into this year's Daytona 500 as the defending NASCAR Cup Series champion. I think that Joey Logano's got a really solid chance and opportunity to win the 500 if he can survive all the carnage and the mess. He will be a major factor. He's usually there at the end of the races before he gets caught up in an incident. I think Logano has a good chance and opportunity to win the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace, who signed a 2-year contract extension with the team in 2024. Bubba Wallace is coming into this year's Daytona 500 as one of the favorites. I know the finishes haven't shown for, but Bubba's been a pretty darn good super speedway racer and came close to winning the last 2 Daytona 500s as he's finished in the top 5 the last 2 years. I think Bubba's got a good chance to win his first ever Daytona 500 this year. I think he's going to have a good car and fast enough car to be up front in serious threat. I look for Bubba to have a good chance and opportunity, especially with his new crew chief, to get it done in 2025. Up next up with the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by William Byron. Now, William Byron is coming into this year's Daytona 500 as a defending champion. William Byron has been a really solid super speedway racer over the course of the last year or so. He's shown some really strong pace and really good speed at these tracks, and I think that William Byron does have a chance to go back-to-back, which will be the first time since Denny Hamlin did that from 2019 to 2020. I look for Byron to be a major threat this time around, and I think he's got a good chance to win the 2025 Daytona 500 with Hendrick. Up next, up with the 33 car for Richard Childress Racing. Well, this team has not officially announced that they're running the Daytona 500. We know that RCR is going to be running a third car on a part-time basis in 2025. At this moment, it probably will be either Austin Hill or Jesse Love who will get the seat for the Daytona 500. I'm leaning toward Austin Hill because of how close he's been with RCR over the course of the last couple of years. I think he's going to be the driver that drives this car in the Daytona 500 in the 2025 Cup Series year. Up next up, the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. There'll be a driver change technically to see for 2025 as Todd Gillen moves over from the 38 car to the number 34 car in 2025. Which could be good luck considering the fact that if Michael McDowell did have a chance to win the Daytona 500 and also, of course, won the Daytona 500 in the seat in 2021. But Todd Gillen has been close to winning a couple Daytona 500s in the past. So I think Gillen could be an underdog to watch out for, will probably lead a lot of laps, and could have a chance and opportunity to win his first ever Daytona 500 pole this year. Up next up with the 35 car for 2311 Racing. This will be driven by Riley Herbst, who will join this team full-time in 2025 in a third 2311 Racing car. Riley Herbst is a very solid super speedway racer. He's going to have a car, I think, that's going to have a good chance and opportunity to win. And I think he'll have a good, fast car. And I think Riley Herbst is definitely one guy to watch out for in the 2025 Daytona 500 as he looks first Daytona 500 this year. Up next up with the 36 car for Front Row Motorsports. While it's not been confirmed and this is kind of a question mark at this point, there is a chance that Front Row Motorsports could potentially enter a third, fourth car in the Daytona 500. If they do enter a car, it's probably going to be either Chandler Smith or Lane Ridds gets a C, or maybe Haley Deegan. Who knows? Probably not, though. But I think it'll be Chandler Smith most likely. He's ran the Daytona 500 in the past. This one's kind of up in the air at this point, but I could see this car showing up in 2025. Up next up with the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. While it's not been officially announced, Zane Smith is expected to be the driver of the C for 2025. Zane Smith has been solid at Daytona in the Truck Series, won here back in 2022 and also in 2023, and near the second half of the year was really showing a lot of performance. We know Front Row is really fast at these types of tracks. I look for Zane Smith to be one guy to definitely watch out for in the 2025 Daytona 500. Keep your eyes out on him in 2025 at this upcoming year's Daytona 500. Up next up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This will be driven by Cole Custer, who will technically be replacing Ryan Preece in the 41 car in 2025, as Cole Custer, of course, moves back up to the NASCAR Cup Series. Cole Custer has been okay super speedways, but hasn't been really, really great. And we know that the Haas factory team is a newer organization, so there's still some question marks around this team on how they're going to perform. Now, they will have an RFK Racing Alliance for the Daytona 500. I'm just not exactly quite sure if they're going to be really strong in 2025 at this upcoming year's Daytona 500. Up next up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek, who will also have a new crew chief for this year's Daytona 500, that being Travis Mack. John Hunter Nemechek has been not the best at super speedways in NASCAR Cup competition. He has an Xfinity Series win at Atlanta a couple years ago in 2022, but outside of that, I'm really not quite sure if Nemechek is going to be a major factor in serious contender. If Legacy could be fast, that'd be good, but I'm not really expecting that in this year's upcoming Daytona 500 with Legacy. Up next up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Now, unlike John Hunter Nemechek, I actually have a lot more confidence in Eric Jones. Eric Jones has won a Daytona 500 in the past, but it's been nearly 7 years since he got it done. But Eric Jones has always been up front at super speedways, and in this 43 car, he came close to winning a few super speedway races. If Eric Jones is up front at the end, I think he'll be one of the more aggressive drivers, and I think he definitely has a chance and opportunity to win his first ever Daytona 500. Up next up with the 44 car for NY Racing. This team is confirmed for the 2025 Daytona 500, and JJ Yeley is going to be the driver. This has been expected that this team was going to show up. I think, like I said, JJ Yeley, especially with his veteran experience style, I think he will be a potential contender for at least making the race for sure. He'll have to qualify his way in, but I think he'll definitely have a chance to make it in to the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Now, Tyler Reddick is someone who I've not really rated that highly as super speedways, but then again, he did win a Talladega Super Speedway in 2024. He could survive all the carnage and the wrecks. I could see him being a guy to watch out for at the end of the day. He's looking for his first Daytona 500 in 2025, and what I believe would be his 7th or 8th career NASCAR Cup Series win. I think Reddick has definitely a really strong chance and a very good opportunity to win the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. Yes, JTG Doherty Racing will be rebranding from JTG to Hayek Motorsports in 2025, where Ricky Stenhouse Jr. continue to be the driver of this seat for 2025. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is someone to watch out for. He's won all of his races at Daytona or Talladega and did win the Daytona 500 just a couple years ago in 2023. I look for Stenhouse to be a guy that's going to be fast this year. I think the team will be quick enough in the 500. The rest of the year is kind of a to be determined. It's kind of a different story, but I think that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will definitely want to watch out for in the 2025 Daytona 500, definitely for sure. Up next up with the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman came very close to winning the 2024 Daytona 500, just losing it by inches under caution. And Alex Bowman has been a solid super speedway racer in the past and has come close to winning multiple super speedway races in his Cup career. There's also a good chance he will be a threat to win the Daytona 500 pole in 2025. We'll see what he can do, but I think that Alex Bowman has definitely a chance to win the Daytona 500 pole in 2025, once again, with Hendrick Motorsports. Up next, how about the 50 car for Team Amervent? While this team has not officially announced their plans for the Daytona 500, we do think this team will show up for the Daytona 500, and Jeb Burton is a person who I expect to be behind the wheel of this seat. Jeb Burton, of course, has a lot of success with this program. Well, not a lot of success, but he's been a solid super speedway racer in Xfinity Series competition, and especially with ECR engines, we know they're going to be very, very fast. I look for this team to be strong, not strong, but I think they definitely have a chance to make the Daytona 500 in 2025. Up next, up with the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. The driver's not been officially confirmed at this point, but I'm leaning toward Corey LaJoie getting the seat for the 2025 Daytona 500. LaJoie did basically put out an Instagram post about 3 weeks ago that he does have a seat for the Daytona 500, and it sounds like it is going to be with Rick Ware Racing for 2025. We'll see what happens down the road for Corey LaJoie, but like I said, I think LaJoie is going to get the seat for the number 51 team. He's been solid at Daytona in the past. I think he does get this seat for the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next, up with the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. I do not have a lot of confidence in Ty Gibbs for the Daytona 500. Ty Gibbs has been very unlucky at these types of tracks in his NASCAR Cup Series career and wasn't really great at these tracks in Xfinity competition either. I think it's going to be tough for him to be a major threat in serious contender. Maybe he'll impress me and do really, really strong, but I don't expect Ty Gibbs to be a major factor in serious contender in the 2025 Daytona 500 with Joe Gibbs Racing. Up next, up with the 60 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. So Ryan Preece, of course, will join this team for the 2025 season. Ryan Preece has qualified very, very well at Daytona and has had some decent runs in the Daytona 500. And I think with him working with RFK, I can see this car being competitive. This car was really strong with David Reagan last year, and I think Ryan Preece is a very capable driver who's getting his first really strong chance and really great opportunity with the team. So I think Ryan Preece is a really great opportunity, and I think he will be a threat and definitely will be a serious contender to potentially win his first Daytona 500 in the 2025 year. Up next, I have the 62 car for Beer Motorsports. This team I do expect to be back for the Daytona 500 in 2025. I am leaning toward Anthony Alfredo getting the seat for the Daytona 500, but if Gray Biffle, who's interested in wanting to run the Daytona 500, decides to want to show up, I could see him also getting the seat for the 2025 Daytona 500. But like I said, I do think the number 62 team is going to make a definite run at the 2025 Daytona 500. Up next, I have the 66 car for MBM Motorsports. This team is, of course, confirmed for the 2025 Daytona 500. But we do not know at this point who the driver is going to be. I am currently leaning toward Timmy Hill, who has a lot of experience of MBM Motorsports, being the driver of this number 66 car. Timmy has a lot of experience trying to qualify for the Daytona 500. There's other drivers like Garrett Smithley who have been mentioned as potential candidates as well. But we will see the 66 car on track in 2025. Up next, I have the 67 car for 2311 Racing. Well, there's been some questions around this organization. We do think there is a chance that there could be a fourth car for the Daytona 500 for 2311 Racing. There is a chance that Mark Truex Jr. could somehow find a way to run this car, unlike when he originally was planning to. I could also see Eric Almirola getting this seat, and if Carl Edwards Kerbush ever wanted to come back, I could definitely see him getting behind the wheel. But I do think this 67 car is going to make a run at the Daytona 500, potentially even Corey Heim as well, or maybe someone in the Toyota camp like a Taylor Gray. Up next, I have the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. There'll be a new driver behind the wheel of this car for 2025 as Michael McDowell is going to get behind the wheel. Michael McDowell is coming into this year as a winner of the Daytona 500 back in 2021. I think Michael McDowell could be someone to watch out for. I think the Super Speedway program's gotten a lot better for Spire. I don't think he's going to qualify very well, but I think McDowell will have race pace and speed in this year's upcoming Daytona 500. I think McDowell's a really good Super Speedway racer, always shows really great pace and speed. I think the speed and pace will definitely be there for Michael McDowell in 2025. Up next, up the 74 car for Spire Motorsports. I think there's a chance this car will show up for the Daytona 500 as they are expected to run a fourth car at Spire Motorsports in 2025. Currently, at the moment, I think Roger Kroof probably would have to be the favorite for the seat, but I also could see Connor Zilch making his Cup debut in the Daytona 500. Connor, a lot of people are really high on. I think it'd be cool for him to get the chance and opportunity to run the Daytona 500, but I think his team will definitely show up at Daytona this year. Up next, up the 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Carson Hocevar. Now, Carson Hocevar has been a decent super speedway racer in the past, and I think he's someone that could be an underdog in this year's Daytona 500. Hocevar is someone who's gotten a lot better as a driver. I think his maturity is starting to show a little bit more. I think more of that is going to show as he does get a lot older. I look for the 77 team to be solid, and I look for the 77 car to show some solid pace and speed in the 2025 Daytona 500 with Spire Motorsports once again. Up next, 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. This team is confirmed for the Daytona 500 for 2025 as they're going to run all the super speedway races. While a driver was not formally announced, I expect BJ McLeod to get in this car for the Daytona 500, as BJ does have a lot of experience, and BJ is usually the driver at the super speedways and even the Coke 600 as well. This car will definitely be out there for sure, and I think BJ will have a decent enough car to show some solid pace and speed in the 2025 Daytona 500 if he, of course, can show up. Up next, up with the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club. It's not been officially formally announced, but Legacy is expected to run a third car in the Daytona 500 in 2025. There's a good chance Jimmy Johnson is going to be the driver of this car, but I would also not rule out Mark Truex Jr. being the driver of this seat for the Daytona 500, as Truex could end up going there if the 23-11 deal has fallen through at this point. But I think there could be some other drivers that are not out of the realm of possibility getting behind the wheel of this seat for the Daytona 500, but I'm leaning toward Jimmy Johnson right now at the moment. Up next, up with the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse will expand to a 3-car operation this year, and Shane Van Gisbergen is going to drive the number 88 car. Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be running his first Daytona 500, but he has ran at Daytona a couple times. The first time he ran your Xfinity competition, I believe he finished in 11th position. The second time he came back here, he had engine failures above the Cup in the Xfinity Series race. But I think SVG, who's been solid at super speedways when he doesn't get caught up in wrecks and incidents, I could see him being a guy to watch out for. Trackhouse has been decent at these types of tracks. We'll see what he can do in the Daytona 500 with Trackhouse Racing in the 2025 year. Up next, how about the 91 car for Trackhouse Racing? Yes, there is a chance that Project 91 may or may not show up at the Daytona 500 this year. Connor Zilic is someone who could be a candidate for the number 91 seat if he doesn't go to the 74. Pat O'Ward, who has expressed interest in running some races, could also be a candidate. And I did see the MBM Motorsports owner, Carl Long, did say that Helio Castroneves could run the Daytona 500. There was talk a couple years ago about him driving Project 91. So maybe this is the seat that Helio ends up going to for the Daytona 500. But I think he definitely will be a threat to get behind the wheel of the seat for the Daytona 500 with the Trackhouse Racing team and organization. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This one once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Now, Daniel Suarez, of course, has been very hit or miss at super speedway tracks. He won at Atlanta in 2024, but his stats in Daytona 500 have been really tricky to the point where back in 2020, he failed to qualify for the Daytona 500 with the Gaunt Brothers organization. I think there's definitely a chance and opportunity that Suarez could have a decent shot, but I'm not really expecting him to be a major threat in series contender in this year's upcoming Daytona 500 with Trackhouse Racing. So, that is going to be it for the updated look at the 2025 Daytona 500 with about 50 days left away from it. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment below your thoughts below on today's episode. What are your thoughts about the upcoming Daytona 500 intros? Let me know them in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, I'm not actually exactly quite sure what's going to be coming out. There might be a second video around silly season dropping later today. Tuesday is basically going to be the video thanking you guys for 2024. And then, of course, on Wednesday, we'll have the goals video for 2025. And we'll start pushing our way toward the start of the season for the Clash. And there will be a Chili Bowl entries coming out very, very soon as well. Expect that to come very, very soon on the channel, along with some content around like Carl Edwards and Kurt Busch as well very soon. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, buddy.